start of the 2023 World Tour season. I'm out here in Adelaide, Australia for the men's and women's Tour Down Under. Now, I've been lucky enough to fly out here in search of the latest tech and equipment that the teams are going to be using this year. Now, there's loads to go through, so let's not waste any time dilly-dallying. Let's go see what we can find. So this is the bike of UAE Team Emirates. Exactly the same as what Tadej Pogačar is going to be riding on. And similar to Jumbo-Visma this year, they have made lots of changes to their equipment lineup. So there's loads of cool stuff to pick out on this bike. Biggest change is that they're now on Shimano group sets rather than Campagnolo, which also means they've had a change to their wheel supplier. So they're now using MV wheels. These are the 6.7, and fitted to these are Continental tyres. Interesting point about the tyres is the team have opted to use the GP5000 TT TR. So this is a lighter weight, faster rolling version, STR, which many of the teams are using. These are a 28mm wide and set up tubeless. So as well as supplying the bottom bracket for the bike, Ceramic Speed are also doing the headset bearings. These ones are the SLT, so the solid lubrication technology, and it's said that the headset bearings will last the entire lifetime of the bike. Two other interesting details on this bike. The magnet, which is down for the power meter, is the standard Shimano one. However, they've removed the little plastic housing which bonds it onto the frame, and they've actually just got the bare magnet itself and stuck it in the correct place. When it comes down to the front derailleur, it would appear that the derailleur hanger, which mounts the derailleur onto the frame, is 3D printed from titanium. Now, I have to confess, I haven't seen one of these bikes up in the flesh or been hands-on with it before, so I'm not entirely sure whether that's a standard item for the bike or if it's a special one-off that the team are using. Either way, it's pretty impressive, and if it's just a one-off for the team, well, it's super impressive. EF Education EasyPost, along with lots of other teams this year, have got a super cool new paint job. Now, this bike is the System 6, and is the only bike I could convince the mechanics to let me get hold of. Now, there is what appears to be a new Super 6 bike out, but I'm under strict orders not to film it. And what can I do? As much as I'd want to show you guys how cool it is and all the little details, I've got to stick to what the mechanics say. I don't want to stitch anybody up. But a couple of cool details on this bike I want to point out. One is the absolute whopper of a stem that's on here. This thing is 150mm long, and when I've been inside the tent having a look at all of the other riders' bikes, there's a common theme amongst the EF Education riders, and that's that long stems seems to be very popular. When it comes to the colourway of this bike, it is, well, I'm trying to decide whether it's silver or grey. I'm going to go with silver, but you can let me know in the comments section whether you think it's silver or grey. But it's predominantly that, and it's a satin finish rather than gloss or matte. I quite like that. And then we've got the split design with the pink and the black. Pink on the non-drive side, black on the drive side, and it's a similar theme which follows onto the forks. I like the look of that, but compared to some of the other elaborate paint jobs that other teams are using, this one seems relatively simple. So the EF Education EasyPost team are one of the few in the World Tour peloton to be using a different crank to their group set supplier. This one is from FSA and it has carbon arms. Now, interestingly, the bolt pattern looks incredibly similar to that of what Shimano are using on their cranks. This is Bettiol's bike, and fitted to it are 54 and 40 tooth chain rings. So I've just got my hands on what appears to be a brand new unreleased look bike. I managed to convince the team mechanics to let me take it outside and show you guys, but before I did so, they had to stick a sticker just here over what I presume is the number code for the new bike. But details in this bike are few and far between. We've got the drop seat stays, very thin tubing. Tyre clearance, well, the bike's currently got 25mm wide tubular tyres fitted, and it would appear there's space for quite a lot wider tyres, so perhaps maybe something as wide as a 30 or 32mm wide tyre. The handlebar and stem is a two-piece design, but really nicely joined together. Presumably that means it's a lot easier for the mechanics and riders to choose between different handlebar and stem widths. Of course, we've got integrated and hidden cable routing throughout. And when it comes to the bottom bracket, well, it's quite hard to see, but it would appear to have a threaded bottom bracket design, which is a good design to see, I think, moving forwards on modern bikes. I'm all for a threaded bottom bracket. Now, I don't know about you, but I've often wondered what the Australian flag represents. Well, let's find out.
The 1901 flag contained the Union Jack, which is Britain's flag, along with a 6-pointed star to represent Australia's 6 states, and 5 single stars to represent the Southern Cross.
I was drawn to this bike like a magpie is to any single shiny object. It's because, I mean, come on, this paint scheme is incredible. It's the sort of ice effect, which is then lacquered over the top. We've got this crystallized metallic chrome effect blue, going from a lighter blue, fading down to darker by the bottom bracket and chainstay area. It's absolutely incredible. Although I must add, a paint scheme like this does add a small amount of weight to the frame set, but I've got to say, it's a small price to pay to have your bike looking as good as this. Now, if you've seen Ollie's custom paint video, you'll have seen he's trying to recreate an ice effects finish like this on his own bike, doing a homemade job. And I've got to say, having seen the amount of time and effort that he's put into trying to achieve a finish like this, you can see why finishes and paint jobs like this come at a premium. So this is the spare race bike of Geraint Thomas from the Ineos Grenadiers. Now I'm assuming it's his spare race bike because it has a little number 2 sticker on it, and common sense says he races on the number 1 bike. Unless of course it does denote that he's the second best rider in the world after Ollie beat him at that Zwift race the other week. But you know, we'll brush over that fact and focus on some of the cool bits of the bike. Now the tyres the team are using are the Continental GP5000 STR. Now these are tubeless, as with the same as what many other teams are riding. But there is quite a difference here because they're using 2 different sizes. On the front we have a 25mm width, and on the rear we have a 28. Now the reason for that is because the slightly larger volume and wider tyre does offer a very slight advantage in terms of a rolling resistance saving. But when you have the wider tyre on the front, it has a larger impact on the aerodynamics of the bike. And that's why they're using the ever so slightly narrow one on the front to optimise aerodynamics up front and then rolling resistance on the back. And if we look down at the centre of the bike, we can see a small little 3D printed chainstay protector. This sits behind the chainset and is just designed to protect the frame in the event of a badly timed shift under load and the chain just gets caught and dragged up to avoid damaging that. Oh yeah, and then final thing is if we look at the rear derailleur over here, we've got that extended derailleur hanger, which removes the need for that separate linkage point between the mech hanger and the mech itself. Now, instead of using the original Shimano clip to hold the Di2 cable in place, the Ineos mechanics have got a little section of inner tube, cut it up so the cable is now held nice and tightly against the derailleur hanger, and there's no way of that moving or getting caught up in an incident. Yeah, I like that. So this is the BMC SLR01, the bike of AG2R Citroen. If we move down to the inner plate on the rear derailleur, it appears to be different to the standard Campagnolo one. One fitted here is made of aluminium as opposed to carbon fibre, and it has this sort of small little hook on the base of it which loops round and sits on the external edge of the outer plate. Now presumably this is designed to improve chain retention and stop the chain getting unshipped from the lower pulley wheel when they're riding over bumpy terrains. Not a problem which I think they're going to have out here at the Tour Down Under, but come the Classics season, that could be really crucial. Bahrain Victorious mechanics, super helpful, so I just headed over and asked him if I could grab one of their bikes to show you guys any cool details on it, and he said no, hold fire, let me go and wash it and make sure it's nice, clean and shiny for you. So yeah, there he is in the background, hard at work. Thanks very much, really appreciate that. So Bahrain Victorious bike, what's new and exciting about this for 2023? Well, there's not a huge amount of changes, to be honest. The changes that are here, we've got the newer Shimano Dura Ace rotors, the CL900, which we're seeing lots of teams starting to get their hands on. We've got a slight change to the wheel sets that they've got. So this year we've got the Metron 60 SLs, which are slightly deeper than what they used last year, and also ever so slightly wider, even though they do use the same hubs as previously. When it comes to the brakes on this bike, the Meridas that are available to the public, so people like you and I, includes a specially made cooling fin which sits between the caliper and the bracket which is then mounted to the frame. Now those cooling brackets are not actually UCI compliant, so the Bahrain Victorious team are unable to use them. But because the bike is designed to have that level of spacer between the frame and the caliper, it means if they removed them, well, the brakes wouldn't line up correctly. So what the mechanics do is they have some custom made spacers made from a single sheet sheet of aluminium that are made to the correct thickness, shape and size. This means that the calipers are spaced out perfectly, and it saves them using the original ones where they just cut off the cooling fins. When it comes to new team kits and new bike designs, there's often the question over who did it first. Well, you take a look at the new Ineos kit design, then you take a look at this bike, and you tell me who did it first. Let me know in the comment section down below. Team DSM are using Vittoria tyres, and this year Vittoria have released a new tyre called the Corsa Pro. Now all of the Vittoria teams are using this latest tyre. However, on Patrick Bevan's bike, which I've got here, the tyre looks exactly the same as all of those Corsa Pros, but it doesn't have any other texturing on it other than this little Vittoria logo. So I'm trying to guess whether this is an early prototype version of the Corsa Pro, or is it a prototype version of yet an even new tyre that they're already testing ahead of the one that's just released? Who knows? But it's hard to tell. Team DSM riders are going to be using the latest foil RC, the most aggressive aero bike from Scott. Now it's got this beautiful paint job on it, and this is a common theme running through lots of the teams for the 2023 season, with lots of them investing heavily in really fancy flamboyant paint jobs, and I'm a huge fan of that. Now if you have had your appetite whet by all of these cool bikes amidst the tech, well, the Tour Down Under is available on GCN Plus live and on demand if that big difference in time zone is too much for you. And there's also going to be short and long form highlights as well. Right, let's go find some more bikes. Oh, better give the mechanic guy's bike back. Might be a bit angry otherwise. The Arkéa Samsic mechanics will have been kept incredibly busy at the start of this year, having had to change all of the bikes for this season. So the team have moved from Canyon bikes across to Bianchi, presumably using a mixture of the Ultra and the Specialissima. But the riders haven't got too much to get used to though, because they're still using Shimano group sets and Shimano wheels combined with Continental tyres. When Bianchi launched this bike late in 22, it caused quite a stir with its aero wings / wind deflectors, which were fitted to the head tube, and the UCI promptly set out and bans them. And you'll be pleased to know there's some nice little grommets in place of the holes that are fitted to the frame. Well, for people like you and I, we can have all the wind deflectors that we like. So the Jumbo Visma mechanics have been kept busy at the start of the year with quite a lot of change to their equipment lineup. The biggest of that being their move from Shimano group sets across to SRAM. They are using the Pro only spec cassette, which is a 10 to 30 tooth. So you can see that on the largest sprocket, it's got a black coating on it, which is different to what members of the public can buy. So the options available to the riders in terms of their wheels, well, they've got 3 different depths to choose from. Each wheel set fitted with the same Vittoria Corsa Pro tyres. And I do love the tan sidewalls. The options that the riders have to choose from are a 34 depth and a 37mm depth, so that's the front and then the rear. And then we have a 40 and a 44, and then the deepest of the wheel sets is a 52-63. Now there is a theme that's occurring here, and that is that all of the wheel sets have a slightly shallower wheel at the front and a deeper one at the back. Presumably this is to aid the handling of the rider and using the slightly deeper wheel in the back to improve the aerodynamics as much as possible without affecting the stability. Now the reserve wheels, which are new for the team this year, are using a U-shaped carbon fibre rim and DT Swiss 240 hubs. Nice. Well, there you have it. There's some of the hottest and spiciest of tech, the most interesting details, and the most beautiful paint jobs that I've spotted on all the pro bikes throughout the Tour Down Under that you're going to see throughout the rest of the race season. Now, I hope you really enjoyed this video. If you have, please do give it a big thumbs up. Let me know in the comment section down below what bike or bit of tech you found most interesting. But fear not, I've got even more hot tech than what you've seen in this video. And if you want to see that, well, you know what to do. Subscribe to GCN Tech to make sure you don't miss out on our coming videos. Right, I'm going to get out of here and I'm going to go ride my bike, make the most of this sunshine. God, I love it. Right, see you later.